So, in the library. So, there is a thing called knowledge of all mysteries. Knowledge of all mysteries. When people talk about it, usually they call it the gift of revelation. Now, it's not listed as that in 1 Corinthians 12. And actually in 1 Corinthians 13 is where it talks about knowledge of all mysteries. I believe it's actually 13 verse 2 or 3. And I'm going to go to it. But I'm going to go to Daniel first. So right here in Daniel, in the beginning of Daniel, we know that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, right? Nebuchadnezzar drew together. Actually, matter of fact, let's go from the very beginning. So Nebuchadnezzar, it says, took over Judah. He seized Judah, besieged Judah in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Right, so he took Judah from this person. Then it says that he took the articles from the temple of God and he put it with the articles of his own gods, right? Little g gods. Then it says that he had a eunuch, Ashpenaz, right? And he was supposed to be over the other eunuchs and the other people that would serve. And so he told Ashpenaz to go and find people from the noble family of Israel, and find people who are showing aptitude for every kind of learning. They're well informed, they're quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. Then he told him, teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. So he wanted him to find smart people who had a natural proclivity towards learning and all of those great things, right? And then he wanted to teach them the language and literature of Babylon. Why? There are several Persian religions that were operating, or I won't even say several, but there are Persian religions that were operating at this time. There was a polytheistic vibe going on here at this time. And so Nebuchadnezzar, his gods, it says right here, Daniel chapter 1 verse 2, let's say subsection, whatever you want to call it, this next sentence, it says, these he carried off to the temple of his god in Babylonia. It also says that he named Daniel, he gave Daniel a new name, Belshazzar, after his god, right? So there were things that they were worshiping at that time that were specific to other religions, false gods, right? So he wanted to teach these people who were quick to learn and well informed. He wanted to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. Check this out. Because the literature was going to show them how those false gods operated, how things operated in that kingdom. It was going to give them insight into how they move and how they work, right? And behind everything, these were theocratic systems, right? So theocratic meaning that some sort of God, or polytheocratic, I don't know if that's how you want to say it, but some sort of power, spiritual power, ruled this thing. So whenever he told him to gather those people, some of the people he ends up gathering are Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Belshazzar. So Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. And it says that they were assigned a daily portion of meat and wine from the king's table. What we don't notice is later on, Daniel says he wouldn't defile himself with the royal food and wine. He wouldn't defile himself with the royal meat and wine, the meat and wine from the king's table. Why would it have defiled him? Was it pork they were trying to feed him? We don't see that, right? Was Daniel a vegetarian? We don't see that, right? It was going to defile him because he worshiped the Most High God, and that food was dedicated to demons. That food was sacrificed to false gods. And the intention was they would take people who already had a proclivity for certain types of learning, who were already smart, and take those people and to give them this accursed food in hopes that it would quicken them in knowledge of the operation of the demons that those people served. Okay, so that's what was expected of them. And it says that Daniel said he wasn't going to defile himself. He spoke to the eunuch, the dude that was over him. The guy that was over him was like, yeah, I want to do this for you, but I don't know. I'm scared of the king. I don't want him to do anything to me. Why should he see you looking different or worse off than the rest of the men? And Daniel said, nah, give us like 10 days. Test us for 10 days and see if we don't look better. So he tested them for 10 days on just veggies. This is where we get Daniel fasting from. He tested them for 10 days on just veggies. So Daniel 1 chapter 17 says to these four, and then after he tested them for the 10 days, then he realized that they were looking better than the rest of them. So he let them continue out their 3 years. 3 years. This just came to me right now. 3 years. I mean, I just realized this. It's in the text, but I'm just now realizing that for 3 years they were on a Daniel fast. I'm just now realizing this as I speak. For 3 years they were on the Daniel fast. And so Daniel 1 chapter 1 verse 17 says, to these 4 young men God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. So, and then it also says that whenever Nebuchadnezzar came to Daniel and them in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in the whole kingdom. So they were supposed to be comparable to the magicians and the enchanters and the sorcerers. The knowledge that they were supposed to gain after 3 years of eating a portion of meat and wine from the king's table, having already been smart and having an aptitude for learning, they were supposed to then come out like enchanters and sorcerers from this type of study and this type of diet of food that had been sacrificed to devils. So the reason that Daniel would not eat the food is because he knew it had been sacrificed to devils and he did not want to defile himself with it. And so with that, neither did Hananiah, Mishael, or Azariah. So Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, none of them defiled themselves with that food. And when they came out of that 3-year period, to these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. So that was the purpose of this Daniel fast. Now, if we continue on, we know that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. So Nebuchadnezzar pulled together all of these sorcerers, enchanters, and magicians, and astrologers, and he was like, look, I had this dream, I need you all to interpret it. And so the sorcerers and astrologers and whatnot were like, oh yeah, long live the king. Why don't you tell us the dream then? And so Nebuchadnezzar was like, nah, y'all conspiring to tell me something false. If I tell you the dream, they're going to tell me some crap because you know that I'm going to kill you if you don't tell me the truth. And so he said, this is what I'll do. Better yet, you tell me what I dreamed about and interpret it. So when he's saying tell me the dream, he's not just saying interpret it. He's saying tell me what I dreamed about and interpret it. These people are not in your head. So they answered him and they said, no one can reveal to the king except the gods, and they do not live among men. He said, what the king asks is too difficult. This is what the astrologers were saying to him. There is not a man on earth who can do what the king asks. So eventually he was like, okay, well, we're slaying all the wise men, which included David as well. So David heard of it. He told them, give me some time, this, that, and the other. This is where knowledge of all mysteries comes in. So this is Daniel 2, chapter 2, verse 19. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. 1. He changes times and seasons. 2. He sets up kings and deposes them. 3, he gives wisdom to the wise. And 4, that's 4. And 5, and knowledge to the discerning. Now, verse 22 says, he reveals deep and hidden things. He reveals deep and hidden things. He gives knowledge to the discerning and reveals those that discern. It's because God has given the knowledge to them. It's not because I know about this. It's not just because I studied it. I can look at 50 million books. I can look at 50 million books and not comprehend a thing. I can talk about stuff like I know what I'm talking about and not comprehend a thing. But this type of knowledge, this wisdom, it says knowledge. It says wisdom and power are his. They belong to God. Wisdom and power belong to God. You don't get truth out of thin air. You cannot grasp truth out of thin air. He has to give it to you. For it to be true, he has to give it to you. Anybody else that sounds deep, a lot of times are spitting half truths. If God did not give it to them, they're spitting things that are not entirely true. They're telling you things that are not entirely true. And what are half truths? We love the devil is a liar. God is exalted. The devil does not tell bold-faced lies. As we can see whenever he tried to tempt Jesus, he does not tell bold-faced lies. He tries to twist the truth. He tries to pervert the truth. So when you see truth, when you see true depth, and it's something that can only be discerned by the Spirit of God. It says, the scripture says that these things are spiritually discerned. But guess what? Man has a spirit, and there's the Spirit of God. Who can know the mind of man but the Spirit of man? And who can know the mind of God but the Spirit of God? But the things of God can only be discerned by the Spirit of God. The things of God can only be discerned by the Spirit of God. They can't be discerned by the spirit of man. They can't be discerned in our carnality. We cannot understand in our carnality the things of God. They can only be discerned by the Spirit of God. You cannot have understanding in depth and it not be by way of the Spirit of God. These enchanters said it to you. Nobody can do this. Those are people who move by way of other spirits. Remember, they were eating of food from the king's table that was sacrificed to devils. That's how they got whatever power to interpret that they had. And they moved in a sort of power. But they couldn't do what he asked them to do, to tell him his dream and interpret it. So now let's check out Daniel 2:26. The king asked Daniel, also called Belshazzar, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? 27. I love this. I love this. Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. 28. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. Come on now. I'm a run. There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. Let me tell you, for people that are telling you ain't got to be that deep, it's not that serious. God is not requiring depth. No, he's not requiring depth from you. But when you get to know him, you will grow in depth. You will grow in depth, and that depth will have an audience. That understanding will have an audience. There will be people who will feed off of it. There will be people who will need it for what they are battling. So don't get that understanding and then be afraid that people are going to try to shrink you, or be afraid that people are going to think that you're being arrogant, or be afraid that people are going to not like what's coming out of your mouth. If they don't like it, that's not who it's for. If they do not like it, that's not who it's for. If it's confusing them, that's not who it's for. Cast not your pearls among swine. Be wise and discerning. It is wisdom that discerns who it's for. Now, people that are running out seeking you, trying to look for what you're talking about, you can't help it. You can't help it if the folks is looking for what you're talking about so that they can say something. It is what it is. They did it to Jesus. They did it. They went looking for him, asking him questions. So what about this? So what about the money that's supposed to go to Caesar? You ain't gonna pay your taxes. Let me see your tax return. Like, for real. Let me get off of here. Knowledge of all mysteries goes even back to the Old Testament. It goes back to Solomon. That same, there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge, but it goes back. Solomon talks about seeking out wisdom in Ecclesiastes, or seeking out knowledge in Ecclesiastes, that he wanted knowledge of the wisdom. He wanted knowledge of the principles, why the principles worked the way they did. He wanted to understand the mystery. He wanted to know the mystery is what he talked about. And God reveals such things. He does. This doesn't mean you have to go trying to incline yourself to look for deep things. Just look to know the love of God deeply. Look to know the love of God deeply, and he will equip you for what you are battling. All of us, we're not in armor for no reason. We all have a field. We are all, not individually have a field, but we are all together on a field. And some of us have specific specialties. So you are going to be equipped for your specialty. People say, oh, he doesn't call the qualify. He qualifies the call. So you have a specialty, and he's going to qualify you. Don't allow people to tell you, oh, you don't got to be that deep. Just always trying to be deep. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. It is what it is. That's not who it's for. And if it was who it's for, guess what? They missed it. It is what it is. Let it be. Going to 1 Corinthians 13. I want to show you where it's at in the New Testament. So 1 Corinthians 13 is several places in the New Testament, but I want to show you this particular verse. It's 13:2. So if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge. Excuse me. We know that this, all of 13, he's saying, if I have this and I don't have love, then it's nothing. So you can function in all this stuff and not have love, and it won't matter. Because love is what builds up. If you're doing it without love, it's not going to build anything. It won't build the kingdom. The purpose of what you have, the purpose of gaining this type of understanding is to build. It's not to hold on to it. It's not to be a shepherd who feeds yourself. It's to build. That's the intention, is to build the kingdom with what you have. It's to build the people up with what you have. To build the temple, the people that are builded up into the temple, to build the body, to edify the body. So that's 1 Corinthians 13, chapter 13, verse 2. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains but have not love, I am nothing. So, one other part, I'm trying to think, is that 2 Corinthians or is it 1? The scripture that tells us about no eye has seen, no ear has heard, or rather it quotes the Old Testament. I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 2 I'm going to go to verse 6. We do, however, speak a message of wisdom among the mature, but not the wisdom of this age or of the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. No, we speak of God's secret wisdom, a wisdom that has been hidden and that God destined for our glory before time began. None of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. However, as it is written, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. But God has revealed it to us by his Spirit. These things, this secret wisdom, nobody else has it. The only way that we can understand it is by his Spirit. It is the only way. So if you hear somebody spitting a word, be careful not to attribute it to the kingdom of the enemy, because you are teeter-tottering on the lines of blaspheming the Holy Spirit. So there is a such thing of knowledge of all mysteries. 1 Corinthians 2, verse 6 through verse 10. And I was in Daniel. Is it Daniel 2? Daniel 2, verse 22. He reveals deep and hidden things. And all throughout, they are saying no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he is asked about. But Daniel, who by the Spirit of God got revelation in a vision during the night, came with a revelation of mysteries. It is not by anything else that this is possible. And I say it with the sincerest of love. 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 Do not do that. Do not attribute the power of God to the devil. What is wrong? Don't do that. It's not helping you, and it's not helping anybody else. Do not do that. It's dangerous.